What is up, Internet Basketball Junkies? I'm here with Coach Kramer. We're in the advanced coaching course where we break down the strategies and the systems that help you outmaneuver even the toughest game plans you'll face during the season. So, Coach Kramer's here. We're diving into one of his most practical and high value resources, the Box and One Buster. This product has various set plays designed to attack junk defenses. In today's session, we're going to break down one of the cornerstone series inside the guide. It's called Viking. It's a flexible, multi-option set play built specifically to punish junk defenses and free up your best player and the players around your player that might be getting denied. So today we're going to walk through why junk defenses work when coaches aren't ready for them, how to structure a set play that attacks the weak points of combination defenses, and how Viking creates scoring options for your star without forcing bad shots. So this is a must-have guide for coaches who expect to see gimmick defenses, especially in big games, especially if you have a star player that opponents are going to try to take away. So let's get into it and break down how to dismantle a junk defense with purpose, poise, and great design. Coach Kramer, thanks so much for hopping on the call today.
Yeah, hey, thanks for having me again, Coach Hack. This is something that I believe deeply in, and I appreciate any time I get a chance to join. All your stuff is good. This is one of my really my favorite topics to talk about because throughout my career I've had some really good guards. Some of them were great scorers, and some of them were better players than others, right? So the extent to which a junk defense could bother them, kind of varied depending on what kind of a player they were beyond being able to just catch and shoot a basketball. But regardless of what kind of player they were, this is kind of the approach that we use to keep them involved while also keeping everybody else involved. And as we get into this, this document, this is something I believe very deeply, and it's something that's been extremely successful for my teams. And what's happened is it's kept a box and one defense from bogging us down when we run into it, regardless of whether we think we're going to see it or not.
Would you say in your coaching career you've used junk defenses more than you've faced them? In my coaching career, I would say that I've used junk defenses more than I've faced them, but I have seen them, particularly with a certain set of players that I had one season in particular. We were pretty vulnerable to it. Have you used it more or seen it used against you more?
Wow, that's a great question. I think I've probably seen it more. Yeah, I mean, I think I've probably seen it more, and I think that's probably, why I feel like this design and some of the other things I've done against it work really well because it, again, necessity is the mother of invention when we coach, right? And if something is causing our team's problems, then one of our jobs, is to scheme to make sure that the next time we see it, it doesn't bog us down. And then as you get a little bit more experience in your career, you realize, man, I've got that kind of player, right? Where, he could get hot and, sooner or later, somebody's going to try to slow him down. So, I get to the point in my career where if I knew I had that kind of player, we started working on this kind of thing early in the season, even before we saw it in the scouting report, because I didn't want it to be a shock when we finally ran into it, because I figured that it was inevitable that somebody was going to try it. So I'm a little less apt to try it as a defensive coach, although I have with some success, specifically the triangle and two. But I've probably seen them more than I've used them.
I've never used a box and one ever in my coaching career. I have used a triangle and two quite a bit. And then I know we've talked on one of these other recordings about that star defense that I ran. That's probably the junk, well, I would consider it junk defense, but what I've used the most. Why do you think junk defenses frustrate so many coaches, even really good coaches?
I mean, I think it's because you don't prepare for them. I mean, I think it's kind of a natural thing. I mean, as coaches, we have so many things that we have to get a team ready to do before the season starts. And we get all locked up into our offense, our man-to-man offense that we love so much because every coach has one that they love. We get locked into knowing that we have to teach defense because every coach is going to stress defense. And that's the kind of thing that can get away from you. At the varsity level, it really can't. get away from you. I've just found if you feel like you've got a team that can really do things, I think it's really, really important to get something in your system, get it installed, and work on it in regular segments of practice throughout the year, so that when you come across that defense, your guys are ready for it. So I think it's just really the fact that we just don't, as coaches, we just don't work on it enough. And so, like, I use the term regular segment a lot, and I get coaches that ask me, "What do you mean by regular segment, coach? Do you mean like work on the box and one every day in practice?" No, I don't think that. I mean, if I know I'm going to see it, then definitely. But like, mix it into, every third practice. And when I say a segment of it, I don't mean 15 minutes. I mean, put 5 minutes on the clock, put the kids on the floor that are going to see the box and one or the triangle and two, and let them work against it for 5 minutes on a regular basis, so that there's some rhythm to what you're doing when you finally do run into it in a game.
Yeah, junk defenses are going to be best used as a surprise tactic. And then once you throw it out there, you're seeing how the opposing coaching staff reacts to it. If you throw it out there and the kids seem puzzled by it, and you look over and the opposing coaching staff is kind of all huddled together talking about what they're going to do, that's probably a good sign. But, I don't know many coaches that would, want to use a combination defense as their base defense, because you lose that element of surprise with coaches being able to prepare for it. Do you remember the first time a team threw a combination defense for you at you, and were you ready for it?
I mean, yeah, I was ready for it because I saw it. That's a great question. As an assistant coach, and this is one of the things that I think that's kind of lacking with today's game. Back when I was coming up into the coaching thing, I had to be mentored. I had to spend some time as an assistant coach. And I did it on, I would consider a Hall of Fame coach's staff. He was fantastic. But one of the things that I kind of saw happening repeatedly with that segment of my life as an assistant was that we would have a player here and there in those 7 years that I was with that program, and it was a great program that drew that face guarding defender or that box and one punch, and every time it happened, it completely took that player out of the game. And what we tended to do when I was an assistant on that staff was kind of put that kid down on the baseline and just run him corner to corner and basically use him as a decoy for most of the game, and it kind of gave the opponent what they wanted, right? And I just decided when I took a head coaching job and I knew that I had that kind of shooter, that I was going to have something ready when we saw that box and one that didn't just keep the shooter involved or the scorer involved, but also was, I like to say, an equal opportunity offense that not just, design plays and set screens to get the ball to that shooter, because that's also giving the defense what it wants, but doing something that got everybody involved and made everybody a potential scorer on the floor. So I was, from kind of just watching as an assistant, pretty well aware that I needed to be prepared for that as a varsity coach. I was hyper vigilant in making sure that I didn't get caught with my pants down, standing on the sideline when the team came out with that and trying to tell my team, well, we don't really have anything for this. So, let's set some screens for him and hope he can get to the ball. And, it was really all about preparation and watching how that made us struggle when I was assistant coach, that made me be prepared for that as a head coach.
Yeah, I do remember the first time that I got a junk defense thrown at me. I wasn't really ready for it, to be honest with you. We did have a team full of shooters, and they kind of shot them out of it without me providing much help schematically. But I do remember very vividly from that moment forward, every game that I coach, I have a call sheet. So it basically has the substitution rotations that I'm planning on, all of our plays. And I added a little segment to our call sheet that was like verse box and one or verse triangle two, where I had kind of a couple things that I wanted to try out of our package. I didn't install anything specifically for these defenses, but I could look at our set plays or look at our offenses and think, this could be effective against a combination type of defense. So I always had a few things ready moving forward after that. But I have used junk defenses at surprising times and definitely got some really good results out of them. And what tends to happen with these junk defenses is if you can wait until after halftime to spring it, that really takes away that halftime portion where the coaches can really collaborate on a scheme. So if you can wait until the third quarter to bust it out, it can be really effective. And what tends to happen is over time, they start to figure out some different weaknesses in it. So if you can pop it on and use it until they might get a bucket and then bring it back later, but instead of using it for 3 quarters straight, you pop it up here and there, or for stretches of the game, it can tend to be a little bit more effective. So,
Yeah.
Coach,
Yeah.
in your experience, what mistakes do coaches make when they're attacking the box and one or triangle and two the most?
Well, I mean, I think that the two that I mentioned, first of all, is going ahead and just giving the defense what they want and telling the guy that's being boxed to go stand in the corner and stay out of the way and play 4-on-4. I think that, that's one mistake you can make, just kind of accepting that's it. He's being taken out of it. I think the other extreme mistake is putting in 7 plays where your other 4 players are just passers and screeners, right? Um, either one of those is a bad thing, because the first one eliminates your best player and the second one eliminates the other 4. And when you try the second one, it also creates some resentment in the other 4, because now, we've got this guy and we just spent 2 days and all we're doing is trying to get him the ball. And I don't really know that it's a jealousy thing, but like if I'm another player on the floor, I'm wondering why we spent 2 days and all we're trying to do now is give that guy the ball, right? I mean, we're a team here. And the teams, I think you hit the nail on the head. You said by design, sometimes you kind of fell into it by mistake. Your other guys just kind of shot them out of their junk defense. And if you are an offense or an offensive coach that really allows your players freedom, and you trust them to go out and it makes shots, even if it's not the star, that your peripheral players, your complementary players, if you will, are permitted to shoot freely, and they're pretty good at it, then that junk defense becomes way less. It becomes way less effective. The times that I've felt that the junk defense is most effective is where you can get on a scouting report that the other coach doesn't want certain guys taking shots. Period. Right. And that, let's just be honest. There are coaches out there that are really good, but they do it that way, and it's worked for them. But like, they're the ones to me that are most susceptible to getting beaten by the junk defense, because now I don't have to guard 2 of your guys and I know it, right? Or I know that guy over there is going to catch the ball behind the 3-point line and he knows that he's not supposed to shoot that shot. So if he does and it doesn't go in, now he's definitely not going to shoot it again. So like, I think it's really those two extremes. And then I think over scheming for it can also be a mistake, Coach. One of the reasons I like Viking is because we can continue to run it multiple times, and it's actually a man-to-man action that has been adapted specifically to attack the box in one or diamond in one or whatever in one you want to talk about back there. But it's also really effective against the thing that you'd see even more, I think, nowadays, which is a man-to-man defense with one punch defender that's in full denial and being left out of the defensive rotation. So, again, I like to be prepared, but I don't like it to be with 42 things, right? I like our guys to know, okay, here, we're seeing a box and one tonight. Coach said it was coming. We've been working on this. That means we're in Viking, and they'll tell me, hey, what are we in? I'll ask them, what are we in, guys? Yeah, Viking, because we run it all the time, right? And it becomes something that they're not thinking, we have to try to run this. They're thinking, well, this is just something that we do, and this just happens to be the defense that we do it against. And I think that's where you have your most success.
Yeah, we're going to look at your set play Viking, and in your box and one buster, there's a few other kind of set play series that you recommend against these kind of junk defenses. But before we get into that box and one buster, I want to review this thread that I wrote that's gotten a lot of attention, and I find myself sending it out in direct messages quite often. The post says the most helpless feeling as a basketball coach might just be being unprepared for a junk defense. So here are some strategies that I thought of in terms of attacking a junk defense, and we can talk about these before we get into the box and one buster.
Sure.
So the first one here is to use a baseline overload, a zone set that overloads the baseline, and you can use the player being defended on the punch to screen the zone. So let's look at, this is a play that you've ran in your coaching career. I know that we've talked about it. It's one of my favorites here, but it's this Kentucky play where we're going to overload the baseline. And I think this would be a great set to use. All right. I'm not doing a very good job showing this off here, Coach, but
You might not be, coach, but I think you've definitely hit the nail on the head. I think that Kentucky series, running that guy along the baseline up those screens, is a great way to get the ball to somebody else on the floor.
Yeah, so if we can use the player getting face guarded, especially as a screener, we might be able to knock off two defenders with one screen here. So all this is a baseline overload. It's got a little timing to it, but I think using your punched player to screen is going to be effective. But a zone concept using the a baseline overload, I think, is a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
Moving
The
on.
thing is, and I think you touched on that, Matt. I think you can use that. Honestly, I think you can use that punch defender to either be a screener or run off the screens, depending on what you're looking for there. I mean, either one of them is going to open up some holes in that zone. And one of the things that we'll talk about as we go on, think about the junk defense, and if you've ever used one, think about what the hardest part of the junk defense is to teach. It's not the man-to-man part. That mean anybody can teach that. Hey, punch this defender, punch two defenders. It's the zone part that's under coached. Right. So anything that you can get, anything that you can do to get that zone to have to guard something harder than just a spot is going to be something that can really hurt a box and one.
And the baseline overload is going to force the weak side forward to have to come over to help in that situation. So especially when players aren't trained very well on how to execute slides out of the box, not typically as well as they would be in like a base zone defense. That's putting a lot of pressure on that player to have recognition and awareness and make that slide over the top. The second concept here, coach, is if your player that's getting denied, if you just put them at the high post, you can run your 2-3 zone actions and they run pretty smoothly out of there. So all you would be doing, this player number 4 is getting punched by number 3. And if you can run your zone sets in that fashion, you've got a ready-made kind of box and one buster offense just using the stuff that you have installed.
Yeah, I like this, and I like that a lot. The Hoban sequence that I teach, the 4-out continuity, especially if the guy being punched has any size at all, to stick him into that high post with those other 4 guys in continuity, I could see where it'd be very effective.
So moving on, junk defenses often have unpredictable rotation. Usually the teams that are running it haven't practiced it very much. So if you just put more shooting out on the court, you can capitalize on late or missed closeouts by the zone portion of the box and one. So again, you're emphasizing reading the action and looking for opportunities. What you don't want is players being stuck into a script and acting like robots, where if you do pull a zone defender out of their area, you want to be able to skip it to that player and make them pay, as opposed to being just so dialed in on running whatever set play action that you miss opportunities like that. Moving on, next is ball screens and blur screens can cause and force the zone to help and recover and rotate. So, this would be ghost screens, brush screens, any combination like that. And I like it whether you're using the player that's being punched as the ball handler or as the blur screener here. So really what we're talking about is forcing the defense to be indecisive by acting like we're going to set a ball screen or running underneath of the ball. And it's really just forcing indecision where you might be able to turn the corner, get into the teeth of the defense, and make a play for yourself or one of your teammates. Any thoughts on ball screens, blur screens, ghost screens?
I mean, I think all those things are great things. There's some diversity there, and again, you're talking about your call sheet, right? So, like, if you feel like you might see a box and one, to make sure that you've identified those things that you already have in your system that you were just talking about. Whatever offensive concept that includes those ghost screens, blur screens, ball screens. To make sure that if you might see the box and one, that you've got a list of those things that you can go to, so you don't have to go searching for them once the game starts.
Yeah, moving on here, a box and one, the benefit of doing that versus what you talked about where we just punch the star player, the zone behind the punch action is prevents you from running back doors. So if you're just getting a face guard with the rest of the team in man-to-man, you can hit a couple backdoor sets to your star player there. That's pretty effective. But these zones behind it take it away. So what I'm emphasizing here is I personally like a triangle 2 triangle and two, so you can really ice out the best shooter and the star player. But if you're facing a box and one, I'd be wanting to find my best outside shooter and making sure they're getting opportunities to get looks here. And the last thing, Coach, manage the psyche of the player being denied. You have to get him to accept that it might not be his night. Challenge him to still contribute, even if he doesn't get a ton of shots. Find his points in transition or on offensive rebounds. I've had this happen to me where I've got a guy who's his game is predicated on scoring. He's getting iced out of the game due to extra offensive attention. And really that just shuts him down from contributing in any way, where he's not hustling. Now he's not running back on defense as well. And now you're in a position as a coach, well, we got to get this guy out of the game because he's not only is he not scoring, but he's killing us in other areas of the court. What would you do with the psyche of the players that you saw? I know you've had some higher level players. Did you have any that were fragile, and how did you manage that?
Yeah, I think fragile is a great word. A couple of them were. The ones that I had that were really catch and shoot guys that could really just light you up on catch and shoot. But that was pretty much all they had in their game. I feel like those were the ones that were most likely to get frustrated with that box and one defense, because I don't want to call them one trick ponies, because their trick was really, really, really good. You know what I mean? Like one of them was one of the state's all-time leading 3-point shooters at the time that he graduated. So, and again, it's not to be disparaging toward that kid, but that kind of thing did frustrate him because he wasn't super athletic and he didn't really have a game where he put the ball on the floor a ton. And again, that's where the schemes come in. As a coach, some of managing his psyche is to show him, hey, listen, we're scheming for you, and whether you're getting shots in this scheme or not, you're helping us win basketball games here with this stuff, right? But like my better players who got punched, my message to them was real simple. Let the game come to you, right? If they're going to do that to us at the beginning, you got 4 teammates out there. They're going to make them pay in various ways. And eventually that will start to frustrate that defense they've been taught. And eventually the game will come back to you at some point. And when it does, be ready to take advantage of it. And I feel like when a player, when you send a player into a game with that mindset, it makes it a little bit easier for them to continue to play through that initial, energy, adrenaline, and excitement that this team has put into this defense, right? Because I found that the enthusiasm of that punch defender diminishes as a game goes on, whether it's successful or not, because it's tiring, right? I mean, it's exhausting to guard a guy like that. And sometimes just letting the flow of the game come back to that star player is the thing. And eventually when they do it once and they see, coach was right. I didn't get 8 in the first quarter like I thought I was going to, but we wore them down and I got 12 in the fourth. The next time you see that psyche is a whole lot more easy to manage.
All right, Coach. So let's get into Viking. Do you have any preliminary thoughts about Viking before we get into the actual tactics of the set play?
Yeah, I mean, its benefits are real simple. It generates ball movement and player movement, which is something that you definitely want to do, right? It forces the defense to guard multiple actions in a short window of time. So like it's not, we're going to do this and then reset and you're going to get a chance to guard it again. It's a continuous flow of actions and it involves all the players. It presents excellent scoring opportunities for multiple players on the floor, not just the scorer. I think that's the most important thing. It's effective against a box, a triangle it'll be effective against. I love it against a man-to-man punch. And the reason why you touched on, because it not only opens that defense up for the main action, but it also opens that defense up to hit a couple back doors and a lob play that we have in it that we'll look at later. And it also offers a couple other wrinkles that you can kind of design out of it. So, I'm a big fan of it. It's also pretty easy to install. Again, one of the big reasons I like it too, again, is because it's not just the box and one. So we don't just pull this out against the box and one. We'll run it out there against just a regular man-to-man sometimes as a set play. And so that the players are familiar with it. It's not something that we got in the closet and we pull it out. It's got mothball smell on it and it takes us 2 quarters to figure out. We know what we're doing in it. So those are some of the benefits of it before we get into the actual actions.
Okay, so it looks like we're going to start in a 1-4 high alignment, and you've got your player that's being face guarded on the right wing. So with your personnel, it's always going to start with the player on the right wing being face guarded, correct?
I mean, if he could be on the left or the right, I just started it here because typically it's a wing player that's going to be punched. I mean, we'd start on it. We can go left or right with this. What the key here, Matt, is that we're going to enter opposite the punch, right? We're not going to fight with that punch defender to try to get the thing started. That's the other thing I like about it, right? You're going to box us, take that pass away from him. That's fine. All right, he's not going to get the ball to start to play. We're okay with that. It'll come to him eventually.
Okay, and I see that you want your most capable post player opposite the punch. So we've got 5 here, correct?
Correct.
All right, and we're kind of move on into this and see how the play starts. So we're entering opposite of the punch. We've got a little interchange action with 1 and 4, and 5 sliding down the lane. I'll let you take it away from there, Coach.
Yeah, we're going to enter to the left wing, and at the left wing, we're going to slide the 5 down, and we're going to post the 5 up. If we've got a good post player in there that can catch and score, we're going to take a look at that option, right? One of the things that I'll continue to stress as we talk is the zone is the weak part of the defense. And it's very undertaught. Some coaches are like, we'll play a box and 1, and we'll hope that these guys stand in spots. Well, they're not going to get us standing in spots. They're basically going to get a man-to-man offense, and we're going to look for options to score, right, other than just that guy that they're punching. So we look at the 5, the 4 and the 1, and now if this is the punched defense, 4 would back screen the 1, and we would do this a little differently. But against the box and 1, it's just an interchange. 1 would slide away to the weak side corner, and 4 would step out to be the reversal man. All right, at that point, we're set up to go into the next phase.
So it looks like first option here would be a post isolation if we have a player that can do that, and that's why we wanted to position our 5 in position to receive this first post-up opportunity. Now let's go through how the action evolves. It looks like we're swinging into the top of the key, and we're going to run a little dribble at action with a paired side here.
Yeah, we're gonna throw the ball back to the 4, and that's going to be a dribbler 2 at the wing. That's going to trigger our 2 to move back door. Now, again, if this is the punch man-to-man, there's a pretty good chance you may hit that back door with that overplay right there. Yeah. But here he's cutting into the zone, okay? And as he's cutting into the zone, right, as he's cutting it toward the basket, the 1 is going to lift about a step or 2 out of that right corner, right? Not to the wing. Okay, because what we want to do is we want to put X1 and X5 here in a tough spot. We want X5 to have to come out and guard. And that 1 man is a guy that we are comfortable with catching and shooting that 3-pointer if he doesn't come out. So 4 dribbles at 2 back doors. 1 slides up just a step, and our next pass is going to be a 4-to-1 pass in that gray area kind of between the baseline and the wing. That's going to draw X5 out to have to contest that shot, right? Now, yes. The key here is, too, that 4, it does engage X1 at the top of that zone to force X5 to come out and guard that corner.
Yeah, so what Coach is talking about here is what you don't want to have happen is X1 be covering the ball, and then this pass is so close up here on the wing that X1 can just slide over. The key here is to make sure X5 is engaged and is making this slide out to cover the corner. Is that correct, Coach?
That's exactly correct. The lower that guy can catch it, the better. He's got to come up a step or so to make that pass a little shorter, but I wouldn't say more than a step or 2. And again, I like my 1 man taking that shot right where he catches that ball, and I want X5 to know that I'm okay with that, right? I mean, like in the scouting report against a team that I coach, right? I feel like when 1 catches that ball, X5 has to believe that he's going to shoot it and that we're good with it. So, again, back to skill work, and that's important. These plays are only as good as the players.
So we're not too far into the play already, and the first 2 options have been for 5 on the block and 3 catching it on the wing. And what I like about that is what I often see is when you see these junk defenses, coaches really just try to force feed it to their star player. So you're creating options where your other players can get involved, and I'm sure as this evolves, we're going to get some good options for the punch player to have opportunities. But I really like the idea of setting up the supporting cast to be in position to make the defense pay instead of paying so much attention to the player that's being face guarded.
Yep. So the next phase here now. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, man. I'm sorry.
So I was probably just going to say what you were going to say, but not as well as you were going to say it. But it looks like we've got the player that's being punched now involved in screening the zone, which I love the idea of this. Why don't you explain it from here, Coach?
Yeah, where that ball is, X5 had to engage 1 down there. That's his man. There's no question about it. X2 is supposed to face guard 2, and he knows it. So what you're doing here is you're putting X2 in a really tough spot. Your two's going to follow on that back cut, go all the way across and set a cross screen on the only guy left on the baseline in that zone, which would be X4. And he's going to get him somewhere close to what you're seeing right there. Two's going to pick X4 at the bottom of that zone. And with X5 in the corner, there's nobody left on the baseline to guard that guy coming off the pick. So the first time we run this, if we didn't hit the post entry on the first pass, and we didn't shoot the corner three, right? And really, honestly, what we're looking for the first time we run this is the layup, right? I mean, that's really the message we want to send. You guys want to do this, that's fine. You better learn how to guard this first. And we're going to shoot this layup on a pass from 1 to 5 coming off that pick down in there. It's a tough thing to guard. And, again, for this to be defended, X2 would have to let go of 2 and be willing to help on that screen, which is going to set up 2 to come off a double screen and get a shot here. Now, I will tell you this, and again, this is just great zone offense thinking. And I've met some great coaches over the years, and one of the things that I sit with Mike Dunleavy, and he filled up napkins full of X's and O's for me. But one of the things that he kept stressing with any type of zone offense is the thing that zone defenses don't do well is help back. Anything that you can do to a zone to make it have to help back is going to probably destroy most zones. So take that and apply it to a box and one that's probably not that well coached. 3 would have to help back there to have any chance of stopping that pass the first time that we run this action, and it's just not going to happen. You're going to shoot a layup the first time you run this. I can almost guarantee it.
Yeah, so just a reminder here, the reason why this option is awesome is because you've done your work of making sure X5 is engaged in the corner here. So like we talked about in the previous frame, if 1 is up here and the guard is able to chase it, this option is going to be a lot limited. But if you execute properly, now you're in this situation where X2 is in a complete bind. Do they help and leave the star player momentarily? Or if they don't, it's probably going to be a layup. And while all this happens, you're pulling X4 over here to cover this. So if X3 gets a little bit too nosy, then you really have an opportunity for a skip pass to 3 if they're overcompensating to play this inside action. So this is kind of the third element of the Viking options here, and this is the best one that we've seen so far. But let's move on here. What are we going to do if we don't get that cut, Coach? If we don't get our post player getting screened along the baseline?
Yeah, what we're going to do is we're going to come up out of the corner here now, and we got 2 down there after just setting the screen. And what probably it means if 5 didn't catch that ball off the little cross screen there, that X2 is now not really in great position anymore to guard 2. So he's lost that star player, right? So as 1 dribbles up out of that corner, we're going phase to phase, right? We got 3 bending back in, and we've got 4 coming in. And they're going to set essentially a double screen there at the top of the key area, or at the foul line area. And their job is to try to pick off all 3 of those defenders. We're trying to pick off X2 coming up through there, and we're trying to pick the top of that zone. So they've got to kind of get a feel for who the defenders are that are going to defend the screen, and they got to put bodies on those guys. And we're going to run 2, right, on that cut up there to try to get a catch and shoot at the top of the key 3, like a head-on 3-point shot there. So now we're back to, using our star player to get 5 open for a potential layup, but also to put his defender out of position to guard now our main push to put the ball in his hands and make a play.
Yeah, so this is a screen the screener action, because we remember 2 has just finished screening on the baseline, and now he is receiving 2 screens to the top of the key. So in the 4th kind of scoring option, now we're getting into the player that's being face guarded as a featured opportunity. Could you run this as an elevator screen, Coach, or do you like it how you diagrammed up here?
I mean, we've done it both ways. What happens here, I think, is that so many players get sucked over to that ball side and locked in on him that more times than not, coming around the outside of that is the better idea. But we've read it both ways. I mean, the more we see it, the better we get at it. The more we see it, the more we kind of can figure out what those 2 defenders at the top of the zone are going to do and what X2 is going to do with that cross screen. And the more we can kind of see it during the course of a game, and I think you asked a great question. Like a lot of times you watch a game on TV, and the announcers are like, well, this coach is going to make an adjustment. Well, what's the adjustment? Well, here's one of those adjustments you're talking about, right? I mean, if that has to be, if you want to use that as an elevator screen because of the way they're defending it, then that might be the way to go. If the defense is all sucked in the way that they are right there, I think the way that you're seeing it on that diagram is the way to go. And those are things that you can talk about and adjust, in game as the game goes on.
Yeah, and just to backtrack a little thing here is we looked at on this diagram where dribbling up the sideline here, the box you're forcing the box to pass that off because X5 isn't going to be up here guarding the ball. So at some point they've got to trade that off, and that trade-off is going to have one less body that needs to be screened because it's engaged with the ball. So you're actually eliminating people that can cover this option just by dribbling up the sideline. I thought that might be just a little detail that coaches might have missed if they weren't paying close attention. But let's evolve.
That's a great point, man. I mean, and again, a lot of time in my documents, we're moving fast as we go here, but like in my documents and when we're on floor, those are the kind of little details that are essential to the execution of this play, right? Making sure that you're engaging the right defenders so that the things that you're looking for open up. I mean, I think that's a great point.
So let's evolve the action here a little bit. We've ran this stagger screen or gate screen for our player that's being face guarded. If they don't get the ball or we don't have a shot there, if they've chased through the screen effectively, now we're into what looks like a high-low option. So walk me through this, Coach.
Yeah, I mean, this is, again, we could talk about an equal opportunity to bust this thing up. The zone's not that well coached, right? All that effort, right? Trying to recover to that cross screen. Let's say they got through that, and now they've got to chase two around that screen. I mean, you got to look at 4 in the window there. I always call them open windows. Oftentimes the screener, when they screen, when somebody jumps over the screen, a defender, whether it's the zone part or the man part, it's going to open up a window in that zone. In this particular one, that inside screener, which would be 4, right? Just when the guy jumps over the screen, just present yourself to the ball there, right? Now you're inside a zone that's not very well coached, right? And you had a guy jump over the top. That's great. X3 saw this coming, so he helped too get over the screen. Your top player didn't get to touch the ball because of that, but right, he opened that window up, and now you've actually got an easier play. Now instead of a catch and shoot 3 coming off of a screen hard, which we like our best player to be able to do, right? He can do it. That's one of the things he can do. Why not hit the 4, and play high low with the 5? I mean, that zone is completely distorted at this point. Completely distorted.
If we've got X1 engaged with the ball, then they've got to make a decision on how they want to play this high post here. And if it is the weak side forward that steps up to cover the high post, there could be a slip opportunity for 3, but you also might get X2 in here that might be covering up. But I think that's to your point, which is the zone is very distorted at this point. So you're not going to be able to accurately predict where the zone defenders are because you've scrambled them so much with the action, the screening action, and dribbling the ball up the sideline to make them switch places. So I like how this is really shaping up here. Let's evolve the play into diagram number 10 here. And if we're not playing that high-low game, but we do get a touch to our star player that's getting face guarded, what are we up to next here?
Yeah, now we're going to put him in that ball screen you were talking about before, as you were working through your item there, the thing you share free with with the box and one stuff. It's got all the elements, right? Here's that next element. It's the ball screen. So 2 catches and he doesn't get a shot off for whatever reason. The X2 does a great job of tagging him out around that screen, and he's there with a high hand. What's going to happen is after 3 sets, his part of the screen, he's going to filter out to the ball side corner, in the left corner, and 4 is going to loop back around to the left of the punched player and set a ball screen on him. And he's going to attack that opposite side of the floor, right, from right to left on the catch.
Yeah, so what I like here is we're screening the outside of the zone. So if we can screen off that player after we've pulled the defense to one side by running that screen the screener action, if we screen the outside of the zone and we turn the corner, there's no telling really where the help's going to come from because, again, the zone is just scrambled up so much by this action that we're running. So now
Another key thing there, Coach, and I always say this: details. I put little things become a big thing, or coach up the details after a diagram. Two really needs to be patient there. If he doesn't get that catch and shoot right, to allow four to loop around there and not set an illegal screen. So a little jab step to his right, or maybe taking a time to shot fake or hot foot into the defender, just to give the four time to loop into that screen is big, because that also gives three a chance to slide and relocate in that left corner. So if two can get around that screen and get downhill and draw help from the corner, you can get a kick to the corner three for a wide open inside out catch and shoot three.
Yeah, and that's what I really appreciate about these documents that you've written on our basketball store there. I think you've written maybe 12 or 13 items for the store, and the details are just exhaustive, where you're doing these little things become big things and stopping and thinking about things as you're breaking them down. I know in some other guides you've talked and kind of replicated what a huddle might look like, where you're explaining these things to your players. So I think, that fits in with how I like to write about basketball, which is let's put as many of the details in there as we can, and we'll let coaches sort through them and figure out which ones are right for them. But we're not going to spare any expense in breaking down even the most smallest detail of the things that we're trying to teach to basketball coaches. So here we are. We're coming off that ball screen. Let's say we were able to turn the corner off of four's screen there. Now we're into kind of a three on two situation, or maybe even a 3-on-1 situation. Break down this for me, Coach.
I mean, it's advantage basketball, right, Coach? I mean, I'm hearing that as a buzzword so much today's game. We always knew what it was. It's kind of being called that. If two gets around the corner, he's our best player, right? I mean, if he's one of those guys that can really play, you've now put him in a position to make a play, pull up and shoot the midi, right? Get downhill and get all the way to the basket, drive and dump off to five. If you look on the back side of this, one is drifting to the corner there, so that when that defense again sucks in, you got to remember they've spent an entire how many days of practice getting ready for this guy, which means that zone is also being taught to kind of really converge on him when he goes. If he is that kind of player, you got all kinds of options. You got kick to the corner for a three. You've got hit five on a dump off on the backside block. And that other detail you were talking about, one drifting down to that weak side corner. If the defense sucks in, two's a pretty good passer. And I've had some guys in that spot that are really good passers. That skip pass on the drive, once he gets downhill to that backside corner, is a count the house catch and 3-3, right? Catch and shoot three. Like catch it, eat a box of popcorn, line it up, tee it up, shoot the three. So that's kind of what we're looking to get there.
Well, two can play. We know that because they're running a box and one to stop them. You don't run box and ones on nobody. So to put them in an advantage situation where they can read the defense and make the right play, that's all that you can ask for, is just getting them an opening where they can make decisions, because that's why they're scheming against them, is to limit the opportunities to make decisions. But what I notice here is, if you can turn that corner cleanly, X4 is really in a bind where he would really need to cover the corner, but he's also probably got to stop the ball. X5's probably flooding in here to try to take away the basket, and one's probably dropping, but they're definitely scrambling to recover if you can get that ball screen and turn the corner. So we're looking at a skip option here where they've made some good rotations. We flattened them out pretty good here, and we're going to skip opposite to one in the corner. What would you like to add about this kind of sequence, Coach?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I would just pose the question. It's kind of rhetorical. If you were the coach that put the box and one in, would you want to deal with this all night? I mean, most wouldn't, because what we did is we just kind of picked you apart and exploited everything that you were, that you were doing, and then ultimately got the ball to the player that you were trying to keep it away from. And if you defended all the other things effectively, the thing you were trying to defend against happened anyway, right? Our best player has the ball. He's either taking a shot or he's making a play that we want him to make. So what I found with this is when you show a team that you are prepared with something like this, and it may take 3 or 4 possessions of it to kind of prove your point, but like I've not found too many guys that are stubborn enough to stay in a box and one when they have to deal with this
Right.
more than a handful of times.
Right. So the defense is going to throw this out there, and what they're looking for less than did you score against it is like a display of competency in how you
Right.
attack it. Like you
Right.
could throw in a team could have no idea what they're doing and throw in a bucket, but that's a reason for you to stay in the defense, right?
Yes.
But if the
Yeah.
team comes out and they run this action where they're putting you in 2 or 3 different tough situations to defend, even if they miss the shot or throw the ball out of bounds, as a defensive coach, I'm thinking, okay, this is going to be a short window to try this thing out, and then we're getting back to our next options.
Right. That's 100% true. And to that point, and we talked about this in one of our other sessions when I used the triangle in 2 against that Wheeler team with Jaylen Brown and all those guys. They scored some buckets against it, but it was slop. You know what I mean? It was a shot that we were good with them taking, or we didn't do a good enough job of screening out, and they got a second chance shot. That wasn't enough to deter me from wanting to run it. They never showed any competency when it came to attacking it, putting us in tough decisions, right? The key is to make that defense, right, confuse the defense. The defense was put in to confuse you, right? You've turned the tables and confused the defense. At that point, I'm going back to what I regularly teach, because I don't have a lot of ways in game to adjust that defense. I don't feel like anyway.
So now we're going to get into a counter action. So you've got your Viking, and if you were going to run that several times with success and the coach is still willing to throw their junk defense out there, you might go to this Viking run it concept. So a lot of our viewers today didn't see our video we recorded on set play families, but in that we kind of covered some common verbiage that coaches use for set play families. And part of that is how you would call out for your counter. So instead of your counter to Viking being some other name, it would be Viking, but you're adding run it to the end, which lets your team know that you're going for your counter action. So with a counter action, you're looking to replicate your base action in some shape or form, and then it's going to diverge from the base action as another option to attack the defense. So right out of our Viking, we can get into Viking run it, and we're setting up a lob here, Coach. So this looks like our basic Viking pattern. So what I'd want the viewers to notice is everything is the same to Viking here as it's going to be to Viking run it. So all of this looks the same. We've got that same action all setting up. We've got our cross screen for the punch player here. So all of this is setting up for something to diverge from the pattern, and this looks like what's going to diverge from the pattern. What are you setting up here with Viking run it?
I mean, we're setting this up, and it's diagrammed here against the punch man-to-man, Matt. So, like, it's a little bit easier to do that against the man. You can do it against the box and one as well. But what we're doing here is after that cross screen action from 2 to 5, right, where 2 would come off the screen by 3, as 3 kind of sucks in there to not quite as far, you can see, to show that they look like they're going to set that pick for 2. 3 instead sets a back screen here on the back side of the zone, or on X3's man if it's a punch man-to-man, and we look to lob from 1 to 3. That's a really cool play when you got a 3 that can fly. We ran this for Alex O'Connell when I was in Georgia. He was the 6'7" guard with the hops that went to Duke, and we got a couple different dunks out. We got a dunk out of this a couple different times, but I also ran this at Canton South with a player by the name of Gerald Robinson, who was a pretty good high school basketball player that went on to play football at Michigan. He was a wide receiver, played for me during the 2008-2009 season. And we got 2 or 3 dunks out of him on this, just because, X2 is so locked into making sure that his man doesn't come off those screens and catch and shoot, that he's playing him high on the high side of that. So when that back screen is set, right, if 3 takes off at the right time and just gets his head and shoulders past that screen, we teach our one to throw it up there at the corner of the glass so our high flyer can go up and dunk it. Now, I will tell you this, that I've had teams that didn't have that guy that could go up and dunk it, listen, it's 2 points, whether it's a layup or a dunk, right? And you don't even have to go up and catch it and lay it in. You can go up, catch it, come down with it, and lay it in a lot of times with a play like that. But ultimately, what we're doing here is we're using our pattern in Viking to set up the defense and get it to cheat, and that adds one more scoring opportunity for us on this lob.
Yeah, so I love the concept of using the player that's being face guarded to set screens, and in particular to set high value screens like cross screens and back screens. Like a pin down screen with the player that's being face guarded might free up a player for a 3-point shot. But when you're setting these back screens and cross screens and they're not handled well, you can hit it for a layup. So the other thing that I'd want to point out here is if you've got a box and one defense, I know we're looking at this against punch man, but typically a box and one defense, these players aren't out here pressuring the ball hard, right? They're responsible for a zone area, and that frees up the ability to make a lob pass over top of the defense. If you've got a lot of ball pressure, it's a little bit harder to throw those passes over top of the defense. But typically in a box and one, they're going to match to the ball and be talking about who's got the next player. They're not going to be up in you, really pressuring the ball hard. So we're going to move on to the continuation of this play. You've had two set a cross screen and now a back screen for a lob. If that's not there, it looks like we're going to move into some screen the screener action here, Coach.
Yeah, I mean, we're just gonna carry it out the way we carry out Viking. I mean, we're not going to complicate this at all, right? We set the back screen. The guy made a back cut. We decided that, for whatever reason, they defended it. Maybe they're in the box and we screened the zone too low and we couldn't get it in there. Maybe the man just did a great job of jumping over it. Maybe the timing wasn't right. Whatever the case may be, we didn't throw the lob pass. That doesn't mean we give up and reset. We're going to carry the play out now. Instead of two coming off of a double screen, four is just going to try to pin in and get him a touch here at the top. And we're going to carry out the play the same as we would carry it out any other time. Two gets a catch, maybe a catch and shoot. Four loops into the ball screen. Right? We space the floor the way we spaced it last time, and we try to attack downhill off that ball screen to complete the segment, complete the sequence, I should say.
Yeah, and a small detail that you've diagrammed up really well is if we're screening two to the top of the key, it's important that four try to screen his own man or keep his man underneath of him instead of letting four kind of jump out and jump switch that action. Maybe they're trying to pass that player off or jump switch it. Four wants to screen his own man, screen the top of the zone, keep everything inside of him, and that opens up a pathway for two to be able to catch and shoot at the top of the key.
Excellent. Yep, absolutely. And then the rest is pretty much what you saw, right?
Yep. We're finishing it the same way that Viking would finish, where we've got this ball screen opportunity. You've made the note to set up the ball screen by jabbing away from it to use it, and then we're getting into the teeth of the defense here to get a ball screen action and see how the defense reacts to that. So, is that what we're really looking for here, Coach, in totality?
I mean, I that's it. I mean, I think if you need more than that, you got to find some new players. I mean, and again, I'm being facetious, right? I tell my guys that sometimes. Hey, listen, man. Sometimes a defense wins. We've made them guard a number of things that they should be very uncomfortable guarding. And you know what? If they're that well coached, all right, then we pull it out and we'll run it again. Or we'll try one of our other actions, or we'll get into, to maybe, like you said, get into our zone action where we slide the punch defender in the high post and, do some different things. But I will tell you this, and I'm being very candid. Again, I have never run into a super well coached box and one defense. And when I say that, I'm not discrediting any coaching, because I've had some great coaches try it. It's just not something that's a base defense, like you said. And when teams don't work on that defense every day, right? And you're really well prepared for it, and you're really good at putting it in positions that it's really just not coached to defend, it just doesn't stick around very long in a game, I found, right? And again, if somebody gets into one of these games and they run this at it and they run it really well, and they find the coach was really stubborn and it really, the box and one really gave them trouble anyway, let's sit down and look at some film together, because I think I can probably help you by dissecting some film. When this thing is coached well, when the details are coached well, there's a lot of things going on there, and not many box and ones are going to stop it.
Yeah, Viking is a really interesting set play to use against the box and one. I really like how it stresses the defense there. In your box and one buster, you've got a couple other set plays similar in nature to Viking. Without going through them diagram by diagram, can you tell me just briefly what your play Tiger does to attack a junk defense and what your play Raider does to attack a junk defense? Just talk
Yeah.
about them broadly
Yeah.
as opposed to in detail.
Sure. Sure. I mean, broadly, they're just, like I said, there's just a couple different things you can do. So we run Viking at it, and they are going to stay with it, even though we're kind of beating it up. And maybe we've hit the layup a couple times, and they're kind of making us do some different things. You jump into Tiger, it moves the punch defender around a little bit and gets him doing some different things. And both of those plays, that the punch defender could be the screener. He could be the person that we're screening for. Both of those plays offer some screen for the screener action. They start a little bit differently. So again, now that zone has to do some different things. And it just gives some variation, and gives you a little bit of flexibility. Maybe coming out of a timeout, they just took a timeout and maybe somebody figured out, hey, listen, we can't get caught on this cross screen. So here's the way we're going to defend this, right? We're going to switch the cross screen, and then what we're going to do is we're going to have the switch defender go ahead and be the guy that's punching the star player now. Okay, well, that's fine. So coming out of the timeout, I'm not going to show you Viking. I'm going to put him someplace else, right? So instead of doing what you thought you were going to defend, now you're going to have to defend a different action that your coach wasn't talking about in that huddle. And it gives you some flexibility again, to really just toy with a zone. Especially the zone part of the defense is just really not taught to defend a lot of different things. I mean, here's what I'm looking for when I go junk. I'm hoping that the team that we junk goes stationary with their perimeter offense, right? With their perimeter players that aren't being punched, and allows the zone to kind of know where everybody's at, and just kind of focus in on and helping keep the ball out of the hands of that better defender. You start moving around on me, cutting through, screening, cross screening, distorting. I haven't probably coached my junk defense, the zone part of that, to handle that stuff. So, again, a couple more things to throw at it. Pretty good chance you're not going to see it for long.
Yeah. So one of those other two options, the Tiger or Raider, and I know that you've got some other things in there, they might fit somebody's personnel a little bit better. But what I like about all these series that you described is we're not running a box and one offense. We're running offense that we can tailor to stress a box and one. So a play like Viking and Raider and Tiger, all of them are plays that you could use against man-to-man, but it just so happens that they are great attacks for combination styles of defense as well. Viking against a triangle and two, Coach. Have you used that, and is that something you would recommend to the coaches out there?
I mean, I think you can. Definitely. I think if I was doing it against a triangle and two, that one of the guys that was being punched, I'd probably have in one of those 4-5 slots, right? Because we don't want to do is we don't want to have to enter the ball to a guy that's being punched. So there's some things I would do with that. Viking and Tiger are actually both zone actions. You'll find both of those in my zone package as well. Raider especially is also pretty good against a man-to-man, especially a sagging man-to-man, because there's some screen for the screener action there that's just a little bit different. But I think they're definitely both pretty good, against the triangle and two as well. In fact, I'm working with a couple coaches right now on how to implement those against a triangle and two. So, again, one of the things that I would always tell you this, like you said, I try to be very detailed with the things I write because, again, I write for high school coaches. I'm not trying to impress guys in the NBA. And one of the things that I always found when I bought videos from some big time college coach about anything offensive, typically it did a pretty good job of teaching the basic or the shell of it, but like the details were, you kind of had to try to fill in the gaps, right? Yeah. So I try to be very detailed with this, but I also always tell guys, if you see something that you think, wow, I like this, but like I could do this as a counter, I could make it better doing this, man, do it, right? I mean, that's how great offense evolves. Taking something that's shared with you and saying, I think I could do this with. I have guys all the time that read my thing saying, I love this. You think I could do this with this, coach? And I always think, well, yeah, I never thought of that. That's a great thing to coach because it's tailored to your personnel. So never hesitate to tailor some of these things that we talk about to your own personnel, or to add your own, crazy scientist or mad scientist aspect to it.
All right, we got a comment here where somebody's saying a box and one isn't a junk defense if you're playing a one-man team. I would consider a junk defense to be anything you're kind of installing on the fly. It really doesn't relate to the personnel of the other team, but a junk defense would be something you're putting in, maybe a couple days before the game or the day of the game. It's not something that you're working your shell drills on from the first day of the season. So
I love that comment. Let me make a comment. Junk is such a negative tone, and I think that may be what the viewer's saying, and I agree with that. Let's call it a combination defense, because I do believe, and again, we're going to go back to calling it a junk defense because that's what the whole world calls it, right? But I agree, right? If it's a one-man team, and box and one is not a junk defense. The first time I ever experienced a box and one, I was a player, and I was in 8th grade, right? And I was a catch and shoot guy. And I think we talked about this on our other video, Matt. I didn't know what to do with that. It completely took me out of the game because my coach didn't know what to do. For God's sake, he was an 8th grade coach. He was a parent. And we were a really good team, but we hadn't seen anything like that ever. And the guy pulled it out in the tournament. We've been beating this team for 3 years, right? Beating their brakes off for 3 years. And he decided, you know what? You're not getting those shots today, kid. And you know what? I didn't get those shots, and we struggled. That junk may be that negative connotation, but I would agree with the viewer. Call it a combination defense that can be very effective against an unprepared one-man team.
Yeah, I think more of what we're talking about with the junk defense is the amount of time that you prepare to throw it out there. If we've got our base man-to-man defense, and then we've got a secondary defense that might be a 2-3 zone. Then we've got a change-up defense that's a 1-3-1. That's our package of defenses, and we would be going to something outside of that regular package to try to stop a team with a particular set of threats out there.
Absolutely.
All right, Coach, any kind of final thoughts here on attacking junk defenses before we sign off?
Listen, I think we covered it really, really well. I think, again, if you've already got a scheme and it really works well, then God bless you. This one here is tested and it's true, and it's been tested at every level of varsity high school basketball, from, like I say in all my stuff, the gyms surrounded by the cornfields of Ohio to the arenas in the shadows of the Atlanta skyline. Doesn't matter whether your kid's going to Duke or whether he's a kid you've never heard of before. If he's a good player, he'll thrive in this. It will make your other players better. And as always with, anything you look at for me, if you look through those diagrams and something doesn't make sense, or you're having a problem timing it up when you install it, reach out to me, right? We'll set up a Zoom if we have to. Sometimes we can do it by email, or I can diagram more for you. We can do a phone call. Get to interact with the people that that purchase our items and become a part of our network is one of my favorite parts of working with you, Matt. So always reach out to me.
Yeah, Coach Kramer's really good about that stuff. And I guess my final thought would be, I'm out there in the basketball world. I'm posting stuff on all kinds of platforms. I get DMs and emails every single day from coaches asking me different things. And one of the most common things that I get asked is, do you have anything to attack a box and one? Do you have anything to attack a junk defense? And I'm just really proud that you put this document together, because it's something that I can highly recommend to coaches when that comes in. And typically what I do when I get that question is I send them that thread that we covered in the beginning of this broadcast, and then I send them a link to this box and one buster. Coach,
Awesome.
we're gonna sign off there. I think we'll connect up maybe in a few days to try to hammer out another video, but I appreciate your time and our audience for taking this in.
Yeah, this was a fun one. I really, really enjoy this one, and I hope that may all the box and ones out there be dead if you pick up on the box and one buster.
There you go, Coach. All right, take care, guys.
Thanks.